Good morning, children. Today in Social Science Civics class for class 9, Electoral Politics, today we are going to talk about challenges to free and fair elections. Now, it is very important when we follow a democratic system that the people should have a fair chance of choosing their own and electing their own representatives, and this should be done by no compulsion. It should be the free choice. So it is the people who are the main source of power in a democratic country. Now, what are these challenges? Number one, we see generally that candidates and a party with a lot of money may not be sure of victory. Now, naturally, victory or defeat will only be decided after the counting of the votes takes place. But while their campaigning is going on, a lot of money is required, a lot of expenditure is required. So those parties which have a good support, they have a good financial support, they may not win the election, but still one can say that they enjoy an unfair advantage. That means that on account of their money, on account of the people who support them financially, so it is naturally they have an advantage over the smaller parties, and also we have independent candidates who may not be able to have that much of money to spend during the election campaign. So this may be one of the drawbacks as such. Secondly, due to political connections, sometimes it happens that people who have a criminal record, a criminal past. So what happens is that these candidates are still able to secure tickets from the major parties, because they happen to be very dominating. So therefore that may be also what supports them, if one can say. Then we have other, like some families. Now, although we do not follow a dynasty rule in our country, but sometimes we see that some families dominate over political parties. That is a tendency for a kind of a dynastic rule or a family rule. If we take, like Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru was the Prime Minister, followed by his daughter Mrs. Indira Gandhi, then Rajiv Gandhi. So all these, naturally these parties, these families have dominated in political arena. Then we also see that elections offer only little choice to ordinary citizens. How? That means the choice is very limited. How is this choice limited? That is, most of the parties or most of the major parties, one can say, they have things in common. That is, to a great extent, what policies they intend to adopt and what practices they follow. So if we see that for the people, for the citizens, there is not too much of a choice from which they can select to vote for. Then we also see that sometimes the smaller parties, the bigger parties, we have the major parties, of course, and we have other small parties also. Now these small parties and independent candidates suffer a huge disadvantage. How do they suffer a huge disadvantage? Naturally, if we compare them with the bigger parties, the major parties, they are influential also. The bigger parties are influential. They have a lot of money. A lot of people financially are there to support them also. Whereas small parties may not have that support, and independent candidates will still not have that. So naturally their support is less. Their support in terms of money, one can say that the money power is less with these small parties and independent candidates if we compare them with the major parties. And secondly, the major parties which are old, which have experienced people, they are there to support and organize everything. So their organizational support is great. So obviously in this way one can say that the smaller parties and independent candidates suffer a huge disadvantage against the bigger parties or the major parties, one can say. Now we see that these challenges, that is, that the parties which have a lot of money, financially they are strong, they are stronger than the smaller parties. Then political connections are there, so they get a ticket even if they have a criminal record. Then sometimes families dominate over the parties. Then also we see that the policies and practices are more or less the same. So the people do not have too much of a choice from which they can select, and the advantage of the major parties financially also and in their organization also. So we see that the challenges are found in India, but they are also found in many other established democracies. And this is a matter of concern because this should not be there. Why? Because we believe in democracy, we believe in free and fair elections where people without any fear and without any fraud or corruption, they can choose and elect their own representatives. Now, to conclude, we'll take up that in the lesson that we talked about, that how general elections are there. We have a democratic way of selecting representatives. Our government, we choose our representatives by means of these elections. And these are the people, these representatives who rule according to the wishes of the people. Of course, they look after the welfare of the people also, but they work in accordance and according to the wishes of the people. And these representatives, we give them, we have trust in them, we have faith in them, and they take all the major decisions as such. If we see nowadays that all the major decisions during this crisis that we are facing, the major decisions are taken by the government, by our representatives, and we all follow. So, and besides that, elections are held at a regular interval of 5 years. So, in order to ensure that everything goes on smoothly in the country. Now, democratic elections, that is, we follow universal adult franchise, that is, all those who are 18 and above and are registered have one vote, they cast one vote, and each vote has equal value. Whether you belong to one gender or the other, you follow one caste or the other, or you follow one faith or the other, it is irrespective of that. And that too in a free and fair atmosphere. Then we have reserved constituencies for SCs, STs, OBCs and women as well. For OBCs actually, because we have their representation also. This is a weaker section, so we include them also. So there are reserved constituencies and 1/3 seats are also reserved for the women. Now, the candidates before the elections, of course, the candidates fill in nomination forms and declare the education qualifications, the details of assets, so that they can be scrutinized and then they can be accepted as contestants in the elections. Then there is a code of conduct. There are certain rules and regulations that are made, laws are made to regulate the elections so that everything goes on. So during the election campaign, there is no difficulty as well. And all candidates and all parties, big or small, independent candidates, everybody has to follow the same. And for all this, of course, we have the Election Commission. So Election Commission, which is an independent body, it looks after the entire process of elections. So it plays the dominant role throughout the election period, and it works independently, that there is no interference in their work. The commission conducts, controls and supervises the election. And after the voting is done, after it is carried out smoothly, then on a certain day the counting is done and then the declaration of the results is made. So all this we see that how we elect our representatives in a democratic way and how the process of elections takes place. Thank you.